YouTube. Good morning, Kaitlin, and I'm your host, Kaitlin. Today we are focusing on science, and to help us learn more about that, we invited a scientist to help us learn more. Miss Cindy Murphy will be here to tell us more about her job. She is an emergency nurse practitioner. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to have you. Okay, so you are a nurse practitioner. Okay, tell us what that really is.
Well, what that is I was originally a nurse, a bachelor's degree nurse, and then I went back to school to be a nurse practitioner, which is a specialized advanced practice in which I can see patients, prescribe things for them, and do tests and figure out what's wrong with them and take care of them.
Okay, so it's very, very interesting. Thank you. Please describe the day in the life of a nurse practitioner.
Well, there's different kinds of nurse practitioners. My study was family nurse practitioner, which means I can take care of essentially from the youngest to the oldest patients. I can take care of them all. Where I specifically work is in the emergency department as an emergency nurse practitioner. So all of my work is done essentially in the emergency room.
Okay, about how many patients do you see in a day?
Well, it really varies because you can't always predict if you're going to have a busy day or a slow day, but on average, anywhere from 25 to 35 patients a day.
That's a lot of patients. The ER sounds very exciting. Can you tell us an exciting story?
Well, over the years, I've been, 18, almost 19 years doing this in an emergency room, so I've had a lot of exciting stories. One very exciting story that happened about a year ago was I delivered a baby in a car out in the ER parking lot. That was pretty exciting.
Wow, that sounds exciting and also gross.
Well, there are some gross aspects to my job, but you kind of get used to it.
Okay. What part of your job is the most satisfactory to you?
I would say having the great opportunity to take care of people and take care of patients. I try not to just think of them as patients, but as real people that are hurt or injured or sick or scared. And I really get a lot of satisfaction out of hoping and helping them to have a better day or turn a stressful situation into a less difficult time for them.
What is the downside of your career?
I would look at the downside in two different ways. The downside actually at work would be seeing people that are really, really hurt or injured, and of course seeing people die and dealing with their very sad family members. That's a downside. Another downside is that I do work a lot of hours and it takes me away from my family, and that would be the downside outside of my job.
Okay, you said that you were away from your family for a long time because you work long shifts. About how long are your shifts?
My shifts are typically 12 hours.
Wow, that's a long time. That's half a whole day.
That is half a whole day.
That's a very long time to work. What are the education requirements for your job?
Well, originally I had a bachelor's of science that was in nursing, and then I went back to school for a master's degree, which was an additional 3 years.
Wow, that's a lot of years you had to be in school. How many years in total did you go to school?
My years in college to do what I do now was just over 7 years.
That's a lot of years. I don't think I could go to college for 7 years.
Sure you could.
What are some of the tools you use in your job?
I use some very basic tools and I use some advanced tools. Some basic tools that I use are my watch, which helps me count respirations and heartbeats, and also my stethoscope, which helps me listen to heart sounds, and even this is a special light called an otoscope where I can look inside people's ears and their noses and their mouths. and a lot of other tools too. These are some of the more basic ones that I use.
What are some of the more advanced ones that you use?
Some of the things that I would do, which are tools of a different sort, are, for example, ordering an x-ray or a CT scan to help diagnose what's wrong with the patient, and also lab work, which involves a lot of science, because a lot of the lab work that we do measures electrolytes such as sodium and potassium, and then the blood counts, which are all scientific configurations of the amount of white blood cells and red blood cells. Big part of science.
You were talking about the x-rays and the CT scans. What's the difference between those two?
Well, it's a very good question, by the way. A plain x-ray uses a little bit of radiation, and you get 2 or 3 views, and we would use that, for example, to do a chest x-ray to look for pneumonia, or an arm or a leg to look for a fracture. A CT scan uses quite a lot more radiation, and we get almost a 3-dimensional picture of internal organs, and that's what we would use, for example, if we wanted to find out if you had appendicitis or something like that.
Okay. What experiences in life or school influenced you to pursue a career in this field?
Well, that is a very interesting story. When I was a teenager, there was a television show on that was called Emergency. And it told stories about paramedics, and it told stories about inside the ER. And I was always conflicted because I really liked what they did outside the hospital and what they did inside. That really influenced me to go to school, and guess what? In my career, I've had the opportunity to do both because I'm also a paramedic. So I've gotten to do things outside the hospital as well as doing emergency medicine inside the hospital. So believe it or not, I have to say that a television show greatly influenced me choosing this as a career path.
Many people say that television doesn't really teach you many things, but did the show Emergency teach you many of the things you know now?
It actually did have a lot of influence, and a lot of the things that they started out in that show are things we still do today in the emergency room.
Wow. Well, this is my last question, but could you do your job without science?
Absolutely not. If I didn't learn science, even from the very basics of basic biology, which you learn cell division, all kinds of things in basic biology, and building on that all the way up, science absolutely is an integral part of my career, and that's why I'm a scientist.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here today. I would just like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Coming up after the break, we were going to interview a microbiologist, but he was too busy, so we got Donald Trump to sub for the microbiologist.